ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗವೆಲ್ಲ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗಹೃದಯ ಏತಕ್ಕೆ ಭಯಮಾನೋ ಸೂರ್ಯೋದಯ ಚಂದ್ರೋದಯ ದೇವರ ದಯ ಕಾಣೋ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗಹೃದಯ ಬಿಸಿಲಿದು ಬರೀ ಬಿಸಿಲಲ್ಲವೋ ಸೂರ್ಯನ ಕೃಪೆ ಕಾಣೋ ಸೂರ್ಯನು ಬರೀ ರವಿಯಲ್ಲವೋ ಈ ಭ್ರಾಂತಿಯ ಆಮಾಣೋ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗಹೃದಯ ರವಿ ವದನವೇ ಶಿವ ಸದನವೋ ಬರೀ ಕಣ್ಣದು ಮಣ್ಣೋ ಶಿವನಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವೇ ಶವ ಮುಖದ ಕಣ್ಣೋ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗಹೃದಯ ಉದಯದೊಳೆ ಹೃದಯವ ಕಾಣ್ ಅದೇ ಅಮೃತದ ಹಣ್ಣೋ ಶಿವ ಕಾಣದೆ ಕವಿ ಕುರುಡನೋ ಶಿವ ಕಾವ್ಯದ ಕಣ್ಣೋ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗವೆಲ್ಲ ಆನಂದಮಯ ಈ ಜಗಹೃದಯ. ಶ್ರೀ ಅಥಣಿ ಶಿವಯೋಗಿಗಳ್ ಜರ್ನಿ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಡಿವಿನಿಟಿ, ಡಿವೈನ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. Sri Marulasankara Swamiji was all affection and appreciation of amazing qualities of his new and dearly cherished charge, the searching brilliance of his intellect and illuminating shock of his divine sparks, the limitless largeness of his heart and uncompromising discrimination of his consciousness marked by a boy in the many of a hurdled Shivayogi in their midst. The enlightenment and the heal all of his contact were too soon and too well experienced. His teacher, to whom he was entrusted for his studies, did not take long to find that he had more to receive and less to impart. Sri Shivabasaveshwara Devaru of Telasanga sought the magic cure of his contact, and by his devotional imparting all of his learning was cured of his leprosy, to which he was reconciled as to invitable. By his initiation in the Maheshwar Tattva, the boy Shivayogi got cleansed of all his native impurities and began to shine with the luster of a purified gem. This initiation is a religious rite performed in the case of every Jangam boy before he is admitted to a religious career. The rite performed with the dead formality of a deep-rooted convention fails to enlighten the discipline in matters of the spirit. Most often nothing is imparted and nothing is received. The spiritual enlightenment that is sought by the performance of this rite is always conditioned by the receptivity of the recipient, and that accounts for the light of enlightenment that was experienced by the boy. Sri Marulasankara Swamiji, feeling impressed of the imperative of providing the appropriate care and culture of a contact for the full blossoming of the boy's native talents, got him admitted to the feet of Sri Murugarajendra Shivayogi of Mamdapur, a reputed expert in religious lores. The boy availed himself to the full of his guru's learning, the enthusiasm and ease with which studied the different systems of philosophy and specialized in Veerashaivism were amazing. With leave of his religious guru, the boy returned to his spiritual guru Sri Marula Swamiji and sought for his newly acquired learning the inaugurating impress of his person for his practical learning in the laboratory of life. The guru facilitated the boy upon his attainment and lent his learning life and vitality for living. At the age of 16, at the instance of his guru, the boy was admitted to the grace of Sri Guru Shanta Swamiji, who blessed the spirit with a victorious march across the pitfalls and precipices of life. The enlightening word of advice of his new guru generated a power that helped the aspirant to shed his separate consciousness and live in the abiding reality of his identity with the infinite self. He withdrew his consciousness from the objects of universe and remained immersed in the bliss of Supreme Self. With his spiritual advancement gained in the light of his learning and his practical performance in the laboratory of a life under guidance of his masters, the boy felt fully qualified for admission to the next spiritual stage, the Virakta Ashram. The religious, rigorous authorities of a ashram did not doubt the aspirant. In fact, the Virakta Ashram was to the promising aspirant a sequential development of earlier stages successfully traversed by him. In all humility and gentleness acquired by him during the course of his training in the first two stages of his journey, the young aspirant approached his guru and prayed for the full measure of his grace for strength and skill to ascend a next stage. A master who was only too ready to push the pushing aspirant initiated him into the ashrama and wished him the bliss of the stage. The young aspirant felt at the feet of his guru to feel awakened and lifted to a higher plane of spirituality. He drank in deep at the fountain of his guru's feet. The dare and dash in the face of wood's enlightening consideration, able sacrifice and suffering, the courage and confidence of love, the bliss of an impersonal mind finding God in everything, the desirelessness that commands countless gifts for dissemination and distribution, and the milk of human compassion in measureless abundance. His guru, in loving appreciation and recognition of his disciples' attainment of consciousness of Shiva, the Supreme Self, admitted him to the degree of Shivayogastava, and the youth was since then popularly known as Shiva Yogi. The Guru, from the fullness of his compassion and concern of his Shiva Yogi, blessed him into the Virata Ashram with the anxiety of loving parent to have him back again at his feet on the due completion of his stage. Then the begun of Athani Shiva Yogi's travels starts. As enjoyed by the ashrama, the Shiva Yogi processed on his travels on foot alone and unaided to have a darshana and sahavasas of the holy shrines and spiritual masters, living in the illuminating splendor of the realized divinity in distant quarters throughout the length and breadth of the country. During the course of his travels, he enriched and intensifies the bliss of his experience by sharing it with the less advanced aspirants, and by striving to illuminate the darkest regions by awakening the ensouled souls of their divine nature clouded by the darkness of the duality of the world. He sought of sanctifying shelters of old and dilapidated temples and mats on the deserted outskirts of a places of his visualization. He sat in those sanctums deeply absorbed in his ownership or a worship. His daily meal, which he accepted as a divine destination, consisted of his self-made preparations with the alms collected at not more than 5 doors in strict compliance with his guru's injunction. The life of ease and enjoyment was rejected for a life of penance and poverty. The drilling and disciplining of the austerity of life enjoyed by the ashrama confirmed and consolidated the Shiva Yogi's strength gained during the earlier stages of his development. The Shiva Yogi, on passing through the spiritualizing ordeal of the Viraktasram with conspicuous success, felt impatient for the bliss of his Guru's feet and hastened homeward to Athani, only to learn that his Guru had felt the finite body and had sought oneness with the infinite self. But he was welcomed to the embrace of his Guru's successor, Sri Channabasava Swamiji, with the same warmth of love as should have been his departed Guru's. In dutiful submission to what should have been his predecessor's wish, the Swamiji proposed succession to him in the favor of Shiva Yogi, who, loving to assume greater and more unrestricted responsibilities, begged leave to refuse the proposed offer in favor of Sri Siddhalinga Swamiji, another disciple of a mutt. But he was, however, privileged upon to remain in the mutt. Sri Siddhalinga Swamiji was not undeserving of the Shiva Yogi's graceful gesture. He deemed in a pious privilege to have to serve the wishes of Shiva Yogi, whose pujas were now elevated to the services of his devotees and enmeshed in the separate consciousness of self. Sri Siddhalinga Swamiji merged his will in the will of Shiva Yogi. He lost his identity in him to find it later in his doings, designed and directed for spiritual enlightenment of his devotees. He discarded all his consciousness of separatedness from the being of the Shiva Yogi. There was nothing he was asked to do, but he could not. The more he was asked to serve, the more he found himself helped to serve. The servers were served. When the Shiva Yogi willed to have a thing, he always had it, but he chose a medium in Sri Siddhalinga Swamiji through which to have it. Great congregations of the devotees were daily treated at the instance of the Shiva Yogi to religious discourses of and discussions.